Welcome, dear listeners, to tonight's journey into the unknown. You are tuned in to Legend Lantern Radio, where forgotten tales and hidden dreams find their voice once more. Every night, the world writes 1,000 stories in the silence of sleep. But what happens to those dreams we lose at dawn? Where do they go when memory lets them slip away? Tonight, I invite you to follow me into a place few have ever found. A place where the air smells of candlelight and rain-soaked paper. A place that waits at the edge of midnight. This is the Library of Forgotten Dreams. So settle in, dim the lights, let your heart grow quiet. For the story you are about to hear may not just belong to Ethan Gray, the man who wandered too far one night. It may belong to you as well. The Library of Forgotten Dreams. Part 1. The Arrival. Ethan Gray had always been a wanderer of quiet streets. He liked walking long after midnight, when the city softened into silence and even the neon lights seemed to hum more gently. That night was colder than most, a kind of cold that slipped through his coat and whispered against his bones. He had no destination, only the habit of drifting wherever his feet carried him. It was during one of these aimless walks that he first saw the library. It stood at the very end of a narrow lane he had never noticed before, pressed between two crumbling apartment blocks. A tall iron gate guarded its entrance, though the gate hung slightly open as if inviting him inside. The building itself was not large, yet it had an odd gravity to it, the way certain forgotten landmarks do. Ancient stone walls veined with ivy, windows that glowed faintly though no lamps were visible inside. Above the doorway, carved in worn letters, were the words, "The Library of Forgotten Dreams." Ethan almost laughed. It sounded like the name of a cheap fantasy novel. And yet, something in him stirred. He felt as though the building had been waiting for him, as though the gate had creaked open, not for the world, but for him alone. Against all reason, he stepped forward. Inside, the air smelled of paper and rain-soaked earth. The library stretched endlessly, more like a cathedral than a building. Shelves rose higher than any ladder could reach, stacked with books bound in leather, wood, and even glass. Candles flickered without smoke, casting shadows that shifted like restless birds. "Welcome," said a voice. Ethan turned. At the far desk sat a woman with silver hair tied in a long braid. Her eyes were dark, but not unkind. She wore no name tag, no librarian's badge. Only a robe that shimmered like midnight. "You've come to look for something you've lost," she said. Ethan frowned. I was just walking. I didn't mean to come here." "Few do," the woman replied. She stood, her steps soundless against the marble floor. "But everyone who finds this place has left something behind, something important enough to dream, yet fragile enough to forget." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. For though he couldn't explain it, her words pressed against his chest like truth. Part 2. Shelves of Sleep. The woman guided him through rows upon rows of shelves. Each book bore no title on its spine, only strange symbols, swirls, stars, broken lines. She plucked one at random, a slim blue volume, and placed it into Ethan's hands. "Open it." He did. Instantly, the world around him dissolved. He was standing on a wide field of sunflowers. The air smelled of honey, the sky burned with the amber light of a summer he couldn't place. A girl stood beside him, 12 years old, laughing, spinning with her arms wide open. Ethan's breath caught. He knew this moment. It had been one of his happiest days as a child, the last day he spent with his cousin Clara before she moved across the country. He had forgotten the details, the way her hair tangled in the wind, the sound of cicadas in the distance, but the dream had preserved it all. Then the scene melted. Ethan was back in the library, the book closed in his trembling hands. "That was?" He swallowed. "That was my memory." The woman shook her head gently. "Not your memory, your dream. You dreamed it that night, years ago. Dreams often catch what memory loses." Ethan stared down at the book, unable to speak. "All these shelves," the librarian said, sweeping her hand across the endless rows, "are filled with dreams once dreamed but abandoned. Every night, millions are born, and by morning, most are forgotten. Here, they live on." Part 3. The Choice Hours, or perhaps minutes. Time flowed strangely here, passed as Ethan wandered the library. He opened books and walked through fragments of his own lost nights, running across a bridge that had never existed, talking to a version of his mother who had died young, holding conversations with strangers who spoke in riddles. Some dreams were beautiful. Others chilled him. One book thrust him into a dark forest where faceless figures whispered his name. Another left him gasping on a sinking ship, water choking his lungs until the librarian's hand pulled him back. Finally, she brought him to a single pedestal in the center of the hall. Upon it rested a book unlike the others, bound in black edged with silver. "This," she said softly, "is the dream you most wanted, but chose to forget." Ethan hesitated. His fingers trembled as he opened the cover. And then, he was not in the library. He was in a hospital room. A young woman lay in the bed, pale against the white sheets. Machines beeped steadily. Ethan sat beside her, his hands clutching hers. "Stay," she whispered. His chest ached. He knew her. Her name was Lily. He had loved her once, fiercely, years ago. She had died of an illness that left no cure. Ethan had spent months in grief, and then, eventually, forced himself to move on. He had buried the memories, refusing to dream of her again. But here she was, alive in this forgotten dream, looking at him with eyes full of trust. "I don't want to wake up," she whispered. Tears blurred his vision. "Neither do I." The scene flickered, breaking apart like glass. Ethan gasped as he stumbled back into the library. The black book snapped shut in his hands. The librarian's voice was quiet. "You may choose. Keep the book and the dream will live with you again. But beware, it may consume you, or leave it here, and walk away lighter, though emptier." Part 4. The Decision. Ethan's hands shook around the book. He wanted to clutch it to his chest, to dive back into that hospital room and never leave. But another part of him knew the truth. Lily was gone. To live inside that dream would be to live inside a coffin of his own making. He looked at the librarian, her eyes filled with neither judgment nor mercy. Only patience. "I can't keep it," Ethan whispered. His throat felt raw. "If I do, I'll never wake up again." Slowly, he placed the black book back on the pedestal. The librarian bowed her head. "Then you are wiser than most who come here." The shelves flickered, the candles dimmed. Ethan felt himself being pulled backward, as though the library itself were closing around him. "Wait," he said, "will I remember this place?" The woman's lips curved in the faintest smile, only in dreams. And then, darkness. Part V. Awakening. Ethan awoke on a park bench beneath a gray morning sky. His hands were empty. The library was gone, as though it had never existed. For a moment, despair pierced him. Then he noticed something. In his coat pocket lay a single sunflower petal. Bright, golden, impossible. He touched it and felt warmth spread through his chest. He could not hold on to Lily, nor the library, nor all the dreams he had lost. But he could carry this, a fragment, a reminder, a seed of something larger than grief. Ethan stood, the city stirring awake around him. He began to walk, not aimlessly, not this time, but with a quiet resolve. For though the Library of Forgotten Dreams might vanish with the dawn, he knew now that some dreams, once remembered, never truly die. And so ends our tale of Ethan Gray, and the library that few will ever see with waking eyes. Perhaps you've wondered, as he did, what dreams you've lost along the way. The ones you traded for survival, for time, for the simple act of moving forward. Do they sleep somewhere, waiting for you? Or do they live quietly inside you, waiting for the right moment to bloom again? Remember this, some dreams may fade at sunrise, but the ones worth keeping never truly die. Thank you for joining me tonight here at Legend Lantern Radio. If this story touched something within you, let it linger. Carry it with you into tomorrow. Until next time, keep listening, keep dreaming, and never stop searching for the light in forgotten places. Good night.